Ben Shapiro brilliantly humiliates a far-left socialist after he tries to make a case for why capitalism and the free market is bad and socialism is good. Guys, this is going to be a good video. I know you're going to like it, and we're going to get right into it. But first, everybody, help me out real quick. Like our video, share it around, and yes, if you're new, subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel so we can keep bringing you guys this great content. As always, I'm your host, Darian. Let's get into the show.
Your redefinition of socialist to mean free markets where workers are participating in a free market is bizarre to me. I mean, and it also runs wildly anti, frankly, the basic texts of Marxism, like the Communist Manifesto.
Full disclosure, I am a socialist, and so much for the tolerant right. So my question is about...
You're here, right? I mean, like... we'll treat you well, don't worry.
So my question is, I've seen your videos, I've seen you at other universities here talking about the immorality of socialism. And when you do, you focus on socialism as the idea of wealth redistribution, you know, taking from the rich, giving to the poor, taking from whoever, giving to whoever. But I think that ignores and that misses the point of what many socialists, myself and many of my comrades, see socialism as being. Setting aside any notions of wealth redistribution, someone already asked about that. What is so immoral about believing that a worker is entitled to the full value of their labor?
So if you're asking whether I'm okay with, for example, private sector unions, workers get together and they go to the owner and they say, we want more of the profit margin. Sure, as long as you're not kneecapping somebody, right? But if you kneecap somebody, then I don't approve of your means anymore. If you're asking me if a bunch of workers decide to get together and form a joint stock corporation, of course, that's how most corporations are formed. Most LLCs are formed this way. It's a couple of guys who get together, band their labor together. It's like two guys. And then after it grows, they decide to hire other people. So we need to be very specific. When you talk about the ownership of the means of production, are you talking about my version? Because that's called capitalism. Or are you talking about where the government owns the means of production or crams down on voluntary associations' rules as to the means of production?
I'm talking about neither. I reject state socialism personally. What I'm referring to is specifically, for example, the term given to worker cooperatives. The most prominent example, the Mondragon Corporation in Spain, owned there is no investor or capitalist group that owns the profits. When the company turns a profit, that profit is distributed among the workers, some 80,000 employees. It's a wildly successful corporation.
I mean, is it a voluntary association? Is there any cram down happening?
No, there's not.
Then good, it's capitalist. That's not socialist.
It's not.
The kid just owned himself.
That's free market.
That's simply not what capitalism is, though. The term capitalism was coined in the 1850s by a French socialist named Louis Blanc.
Right, as a derogatory term. Right, I should actually use the term free market. It's a free market system when voluntarism is associated with it.
Right, so
this kid really doesn't seem like he's a fan of the free market or a robust economy. Nor does Joe Biden, and I think that explains our crumbling economy and the skyrocketing inflation, at least in part. And that is why, everybody, I have decided to partner with Goldco, and I think you should too. Why do this, you guys? There are a few simple reasons. For one, as the value of the dollar has historically declined, the value of gold has gone up. That might be a sign there. Aside from that, there are a lot of great benefits you can get with Goldco. For one, you can roll over your IRA or 401k, penalty and tax free. Yes, you heard that right. So check it out, everybody. Go to rtmgold.com. You can type it in your web browser or click the link in your description. And there are a lot of great benefits, okay? You can get a free gold kit. Yes, you heard that right, free. We understand this is a huge decision and we want to equip you with as much information as necessary. So check it out, everybody. Go to rtmgold.com.
So that assumes that markets are unique to capitalism, that capitalism has the sole claim on markets, when no one has...
You're not arguing for anything that is non-violent, that violates any single prescription of free markets that I've laid forth. So I'm wondering, if we're just arguing over, you're saying that my free market terminology is actually socialist terminology, then we're arguing over semantics. What is it about what I have said that you actually don't like? I'm still wondering.
All right, well, what I don't like about what you said, I believe it's intellectually dishonest for you to lay unequivocal claim for capitalism on the market system and simply say, all right, that's it. I believe that's intellectually dishonest. I think it misrepresents what socialism is.
There's not a single theorist of markets who would disagree with a single proposition that I've laid at the roots of what markets are. Not one. Okay, there's not one. And your redefinition of socialist to mean free markets where workers are participating in a free market is bizarre to me. I mean, and it also
sounds like the kid is actually a capitalist. Who would have knew?
Also runs wildly anti, frankly, the basic texts of Marxism, like the Communist Manifesto.
Let's see a little bit more of this interaction.
You own a pencil factory. I'm a worker in that pencil factory. you can have all the machinery, you can buy all the raw materials you want, but without me, and presumably many others like me, to assemble the pencils, all you would have is a pile of wood, yellow paint, graphite, rubber, and aluminum.
Okay.
That would be worth, and that is worth less than the pencil when you try and sell it. And yet, all of that value added by labor, apart from the wages that you give me, which, if we're being honest, there is a major power imbalance in our ability to negotiate that.
If all that putting the pencil together requires is basic use of your prefrontal cortex, then yes, your labor is alienable at lower rates than if you are a doctor. That's not the fault of the person who owns the machinery.
But if you didn't have workers like me and your pencil factory, and you were just one man.
But I do. I have millions of people who are willing to do that voluntarily for me.
Here's another point that's worth mentioning. If a worker doesn't have business owners who are willing to take risks, put their finances on the line in order to build something bigger than themselves, they'd be out of a job. They wouldn't even have one in the first place. Why is that not a part of the discussion?
You were just one person trying to assemble pencils. You're not going to get very far. You need workers. Capital needs labor infinitely more than labor needs capital. That's why you have worker cooperatives where the workers are the ones.
I fundamentally disagree on the distinction between capital and labor. Capital is just a term for money. If you're talking about money, money does not grow from the ground. Money only has value because it was traded for labor at one point, or the products of labor. So if I take my money and I buy machinery, I have invested my labor in doing that because I didn't get the money from nowhere. Even if I got it from my parents didn't get the money from nowhere. The people who built the machines required me to trade something of value to them in order for me to obtain the machines. The people who invented the machines required people to pay them in order to get the patent to that machine so they could build the machine. The problem that I'm seeing in what you're saying is you have still failed. If what you're talking about is a system of voluntarism, you still have not named any area in which we disagree, and yet you're telling me that you're a socialist and I'm a free marketer. So one of us has got this wildly wrong, and I'm pretty sure it's not me.
The differentiation I draw, and I'm not alone in this, I'm not one person trying to redefine anything, the differentiation I and many others like me draw between socialism and capitalism is that under capitalism, when you as the owner of the factory, you give me a wage. The wage could be $7.25, it could be $15, it could be whatever an hour, right? But you give me a wage. All the additional profit above made from selling the pencils or whatever good you produce above what is reinvested into the company ultimately goes to you or the investors, those who own shares in the means of production.
Right.
Under socialism, those people are the workers, and the example I give, again, is cooperative enterprise.
No, those are the people who are investing the risk.
Cooperative enterprise is voluntary and therefore part of a free market system. I don't know how many times we're going to have to explain this, but it sounds like it's going to be a long day.
So if they carry the risk, then they get the benefit. The owner of the factory carries the risk, therefore he gets the benefit. The workers in the company you mentioned, if that company were to go bankrupt, they would carry the risk as well as the benefit. If the company goes bankrupt and this guy has to pay off all of his debts, the worker may lose his job, but he's not the one who's going to incur the debt of having gone bankrupt. If you incur risk, then you're the one who pays the downside.
Exactly.
The worker does not pay the downside. Okay, it is the investor who pays the downside, who invested in all the machinery, who sunk millions of dollars into making your labor productive. Because guess what? Your labor is without that machinery. Gunk. Nothing. You don't have a pencil to put together. You don't got the wood. You don't got the paint. You don't got the rubber. You don't got the metal. You got nothing. Right? You're sitting there, standing outside, twiddling your thumbs. It required somebody to invest. Who do you think put more in? The guy who spent millions of dollars buying all the machinery, leasing the place, making sure there was a management structure, doing the LLC formation, making sure all the tax code was in compliance. Or you standing outside because you can stick a piece of graphite into a piece of wood. Now we're done.
It's all true. At the end of the day, business owners incur far more risk than employees do. That's a reality that's true, whether you like it or not. And yes, I understand that super large corporations and whatnot often have a lot less risk because they can be monopolies and things like that, but that's not what we're talking about here, okay? It's a nuanced discussion, to be sure. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. As always, please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked about the clip and what kind of content you want to see in the future, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, and God bless.